Now we're entering the part of the conversation that Leslie and I are going to have. And I'm going to be over here for just a second because that's right. So, as you know, at this point, we're coming in after the first 10 philosophical points that Rhonda and I talked about. And then Rhonda and I introduced this theme. So Leslie and I are coming in after that. We're going to discuss that theme, and then we're going to go down to the more. I don't really have a good descriptor yet. I think after we've read a few of them, we might have a better idea of how to distinguish between the two groups of questions.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but one is meant to be more academic and one is meant to be more social, essentially. So the first theme is this: status versus essence. Liberty began as something you had or lacked by social position, a legal fact, not a human truth. The deepest philosophical shift was the claim that freedom is intrinsic to persons as such, not conferred by citizenship, birth, or power. This move from liberty as status to liberty as essence underlies every subsequent rights argument, but it remains contested. If freedom is intrinsic, why do its protections remain so unevenly distributed? So, if you want to respond to any of these, if something comes up, go ahead, because we have.
Okay.
And while you're responding, I'll go down to that next question.
Okay. Um, I think it's still under dispute, and why it is such a hot topic is because there are certain people in our world who believe that they are better than other types of people. And typically, they are the ones who have control over governments, over industry and commerce, and they're the ones who make the rules.
Mhm.
And it is to their benefit
Mhm.
to keep certain people subservient.
Well, in a sense, that's where you get conservatives. But I mean that in
Yes.
a very serious way, though, because if things are the way that you want them to be and you're prosperous, you're going to want to conserve that situation.
Yes, you want to keep it.
Makes sense. I mean, not even getting to the greed part yet. Okay, so is freedom something you're born with or something you're given? For most of history, whether you were free depended on where you were born, who your parents were, or whether you'd been conquered. Gradually, people started arguing that freedom belongs to every person just because they're human, not because a king or law says so. But here's the problem that hasn't gone away. If freedom is something every person naturally has, why do some people still have so much more of it than others? And I think that not only everything you said, but I think it's also true, and it bears out in the philosophical discussion, that freedom is a waffle word.
Yes.
Freedom means different things to different people. And some people think it's freedom that they get to keep and spend their money however they please, but other people think it's freedom to not have to be subservient to those people with money,
Yes.
and on and on.
Yeah. And I was thinking that myself when I was going over this or reviewing the material. This is just another one of those waffle words because,
Mhm.
like you say, everybody has a different viewpoint of freedom.
Mhm.
And we can't, I mean, as I mentioned this when we were talking the last time about my teacher had made this comment that our freedom ends where the freedom of another begins.
Mhm.
And so I don't think there is such a thing as 100% freedom.
Mhm.
There's freedom that has to be tempered by morality.
Mhm. That's right. And the other thing is, what kind of freedom is intrinsic? Is our body free when we're born? No, 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 no. We will die. You must have people taking care of you. You wouldn't live, you might not even live a few minutes if somebody didn't clear your airway.
Right.
So we don't have bodily freedom immediately. Do we have intellectual freedom? Well, clearly not. Clearly not. And by the time you are mature enough to start having an intellect per se, you're already socially conditioned.
Yes.
Do we have freedom of thought outside of the conditioning we've had? No. I'm suggesting
Probably not
that,
universally, no.
well, what I mean is everything that we are is at least in part based on what we have been. Like, one moment leads to the next moment. I'm not talking about determinism at all, because that's a whole other specific thing. But what I am saying is that our ideas of bigotry and our ideas of freedom and our ideas of laws and all those sorts of things are, whether we agree with them or disagree with them, the basis is formed by our family and our culture.
Yes, that's very correct. Yeah, I agree.
Mhm. But your unexpressed doubt, I agree with as well. That, where was that I thought you might be going?
I don't know.
I know, but I had that you can have innovative thought, or you can be different than your upbringing, and you can think outside of that box. I thought was maybe what
Well,
we're.
that's what I was thinking before, is that there are some of us who do break away from our family, our culture, our upbringing, our conditioning. Um, I was actually speaking with someone today talking about that. So I lived a very dysfunctional childhood, and I don't know what I said to my friend was, I don't know how I came out of that being able to think for myself, because
Right.
the control that was exerted over me was absolute. I couldn't choose anything that I wanted to wear. I
Mhm.
couldn't choose what I wanted to read. I couldn't choose how to spend my money. Everything was controlled for me, but I still came out of it with a mind of my own. And I don't know how that happened. So I think that there are some of us who do break away from the conditioning.
Mhm. For that, but what we've been through and what we have thought, even, and what we've experienced and what we've read, all of those things influence how we think.
Of course they
And
do.
I think that,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, and I think that the thing that you expressed, the thing that I expressed, I think there's a tension in them,
Hmm.
which I think is also the free will determinism kind of tension.
Well, that's what makes life so difficult
Mhm.
because it's constant tension and coming
Mhm.
from all sorts of sources, and that's
Mhm.
one of them.
And as soon as we didn't need to worry about survival quite as much, they started putting abstract pressures and stresses on us.
That's true.
All right, going back to number 2, interior versus exterior freedom.
Mm.
Freedom, oh, yeah, interior versus exterior freedom. Is liberty a condition of the world around you or a condition of the self? The Stoic turn inward. Freedom as mastery of the will, regardless of circumstance, runs through Augustine, the Reformation, conscience, Kant's autonomy, and into contemporary debates about agency under structural constraint. This is what I've talked about to you a little bit about, if people are abusing you, and then it's up to you to behave a certain way. It's up to you to absorb the abuse and deal with it in your mind. It's up to you to emotionally regulate while they get to all be abusers. And I think that that's an interesting strand that runs through our culture quite a bit.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
It can be enraging.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
The
We're
tense.
gonna have to
I'm
edit
sorry.
here. I'm
Okay.
sorry. There's a heater on and it's
Well, that's okay. We'll
bothering me.
take out parts. Um,
Sorry.
The tension is unresolved. Interior freedom without external conditions risks quietism. In other words, stifling yourself. Or like keeping your mind within yourself, right? So like an artist who doesn't share their work or whatever would be, that's okay. Um, and then external freedom without interior discipline risks license, namely Trump, right?
And
External freedom without interior discipline
yeah, that describes him quite effectively.
risks license. Yes, I'd say he has
He
taken
has
license.
taken a great deal of license in the last year, in the last week.
In the last few days, and probably right now while we're not paying attention.
Probably.
So, to bring the conversation to the table, is freedom about the outside world or the inside world? Well, see, back. Aristotle made this interesting distinction about the freedom to act versus the freedom. How did he put? Oh, civic freedom. The freedom to act the way you want versus the freedom to vote for your representative government. And they're very different kinds of freedom. And I'm thinking that the one gets taken away from us while they tell us, well, you can vote.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really experiencing a real representative democracy right now because I think so
No.
many of our legislators are just completely ignoring what the people want and they're doing what Trump wants.
Agreed. And at the same time, no, not at the same time. I can't compete with that one. I mean, no. I mean, I think that when you say that representatives are now representing like hundreds of thousands of people, that they can't possibly really represent everybody. They can
No,
only
they can't.
represent. That's why they do is they say what they think. You vote for the person who thinks the most like you, and then they go there and do what they want. And there's a problem with that model.
hmm
I don't know a better model, and I don't know how to fix it, but there's a problem with this model.
Yes, there is. It's been increasingly becoming more of a problem in the last 20-ish years.
Kind of since Watergate, it's like it's more obvious. I don't know if it's worse. It's more obvious.
Maybe that's what it is.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Um, some philosophers said that real freedom is about what's happening around you, whether people are blocking you, controlling you, or telling you what to do. Others said real freedom is about what's happening inside you, whether you control your own thoughts, reactions, and choices. A slave who stays calm and thinks clearly, some argued, is freer than a king ruled by his own anger.
This when I read this sentence earlier, it really struck me because I put a great deal of emphasis on the interior
Mhm,
freedom
mhm,
of controlling my emotions, controlling my thoughts, deciding, for myself what I believe,
mhm,
what is true for me. Um, I have for a long time lived in a body that has been betraying me. And so my physical freedom has limitations on it.
mhm,
So the internal freedom is very important to me.
mhm. So, excuse me. The difference between the freedom to do as you please and think as you please and the freedom to keep your property was where they started making the distinction, which isn't really where you're making distinctions.
No.
Mm-hmm. They want you to have the freedom to keep all your property, and they don't really care. Some people, libertarians in particular,
hmm
they don't care so much about the rest of that. Whereas liberals want you to have the freedom to have that and may not care as much about that.
Yes.
And they were calling it positive freedom versus negative freedom.
Negative. Like, well, yeah, the negative is like freedom from want, freedom from fear,
Freedom from oppression and freedom from
freedom
people taking your property as well. There's also
Mhm.
that element. And so, like I said, libertarians, they didn't care as much about the freedom from want. They want the freedom to keep their property. And they drew waffle words. They drew their distinctions where they wanted them to be.
Now, one of the things, you had mentioned before, it's like freedom to do what you want.
Mhm.
Um, to me, that's not sustainable in any way at all. Because if we were all doing everything we wanted with no constraints, there are psychopaths and monsters in our populace, and they will be murdering just because
That's
that's what
right.
they want to do. They will be raping because that's what they want to do.
Right.
So to me,
That's
that's
funny.
not freedom.
When I was talking about this earlier with Rhonda, see, I was thinking about me, not a creep.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking about, and I started thinking about indigenous people and spirit quests and having the freedom, like right now, the way our culture is and the way borders are and and transportation and the way things aren't set up for walking and there's not like contiguous wild spaces, it would be very hard to really have a spirit quest.
Yeah.
So that took away their freedom to have their culture. And so you don't have the freedom to forage. I was going more there.
hmm
So but see, then with the way you respond and the way I responded, that's a whole nother tension.
Well, I have a deviant
The
mind,
freedom,
so I automatically went to the monsters. I'm sorry.
the freedom though for people with good intent to do what they want gets limited as we try to stop the monsters. But if you give everybody too much freedom, then you're giving the monsters freedom, and that is another natural tension in lawmaking.
Yes, yeah, it is.
All right, so here's what I was talking about: negative versus positive liberty. The organizing axis of modern liberty. Liberty. Well, I've been watching too many commercials. Liberty. Did you see the one? Did you see the one where she says Bibberty and he falls in love? Okay, it's really silly.
I haven't been watching TV in a while.
The organizing axis of modern liberty debates. Okay. Negative liberty demands only non-interference, the absence of external obstacles, like I said, the libertarians.
Mhm.
Positive liberty demands actual capacity, the real ability to act meaningfully. Every welfare state, every critique of formal equality, every capabilities argument is a positive liberty claim, and every libertarian resistance to redistribution is a negative liberty defense. Neither dissolves the other. The boundary between them is where most political conflict lives.
Yes, it
Isn't that
certainly
interesting?
does. Yeah, it is.
And it my freedom ends where yours begins kind of even describes some of that tension.
Hmm.
Not all of it, but okay. So then, does freedom mean being left alone or being given what you need? One version of freedom just means nobody stops you from doing what you want. Another version says that's not enough. If you're too poor, too sick, or too uneducated to actually do anything, you're not really free. If that isn't right now what's going on in our government, you have half of them that want to just be able to keep everything they have and not be told what to do or not be stopped from anything that they think is cool. And if they want to fool stupid people and get their money from them, you should leave them alone to do it.
Right.
And the other group is saying, but if you exploit these people and you don't let them have medical care, then they're not free. And this is the land of the free.
Hmm. It's complicated.
The first version says the government should stay out of your life, which I more or less kind of agree with in general. If you're doing all right, they should leave you be.
Yes.
Except for the fact that we all have to pay in something so we have roads. Somebody was saying today they thought taxes they were just stealing from you. And I said, yeah, I said, and yet we use the roads and we use the lights at night. And he went, oh.
And we have a fire department. And yeah.
Post office, sort of.
Yes.
We did. All right, but anyway, the first version says the government should stay out of your life. The second says the government should make sure you have what you need to actually use your freedom. And almost every political argument today comes back to this disagreement.
And I don't understand why there can't be a point where we compromise, because I think both of these things can be true at the same time
Or even at different times in different
in
quantities.
different ways.
And there I have a 5-letter word, greed.
Well,
Okay. I just had to
yes.
check and make sure that it really was 5. I think that that's mainly why the people who want you to leave them alone don't want their wealth redistributed. Somebody put it this way, and we might get to this, we might not. The argument is that that which you acquired in a Lockean sense, Locke thought that if you can't own land unless you've done labor and improved the land. Therefore, the argument that the indigenous people didn't have any rights to the land, they didn't do anything with it. They just walked around and enjoyed it. Whereas we came along and we put in, right? We put in buildings and roads and planted things and killed the animals that were living there first. We improved the
The
land.
people that were living there first, and yeah, and we made it so much better.
Paved paradise.
Put up a parking lot.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So, but they were saying that because in times past, somebody had bothered to improve and deal with the land, then that land was theirs, and all the things that came from that, which include then inheritance and generations of people, blah, 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 was deserved because of this original ancestor, is kind of how they're going. If your ancestor didn't do that, too bad for you. Yeah, my ancestor was born into slavery. Well, bummer.
Mhm. Yeah.
Greed,
Mine
entitlement.
mine left their country so that they could be safe from war.
Mine,
Yeah.
mine left pogroms.
Yeah.
However, we
Shame
did come
on
to
it.
stolen land. They did. They did. But did they know that? I don't. I don't. All right. they may have known that, but did they conceptualize it that way?
Probably not.
And not that that makes it okay, but it's really hard to go back in history and tell people that they weren't supposed to agree with their culture. It's you can't tell people that they ought to have stepped out, and that's real difficult. Like the Nazi thing is harder because it came upon them, and you'd think that they would go, "Hey, whoa, no, mm-mm."
Yeah.
But you think people here would do more of that too, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Mm.
Anyway, so number 4, right? Yeah, we haven't done that.
Yes.
Individual versus relational self. And again, it's developing that same theme. You notice that, is it you and what you want to do and who you are and how you express yourself, or is it you're doing what you're supposed to do within the
Within your
system that you
community.
voted for that gives you the freedom? And I agree with you that there's a both.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have one without the other. People need other people.
I agree.
And
Mm-hmm.
and if we're not focused on survival, people tend to be able to have an inner life and desires.
Yes.
Were you going to say something else?
Well, I mean, all of these discussions that we're having, starting with the last one with the waffle words, it's all waffle words. I mean,
Uh-huh.
anything, any kind of structure we have in our society, anywhere, um, is interpretable.
Waffle words and gentlemen's agreements.
Yeah, and that, if you really think about it, it is kind of amazing that civilization has gotten anywhere
I
with
thought the same
with
thing.
all of this stuff that creates so much confusion and discord. And
And has it gotten anywhere? Because in a way, we're doing this a lot. We go out this direction, we come back. We go out that direction, we come back. And like we're still fighting the same fights they were fighting in ancient
yeah,
Greece.
I was having thoughts like that really recently, that for all of our technology and all the advancements, from that perspective, we are still the same putrid species that we were back when we were
That's right.
bashing people's heads in with clubs.
Closer to baboons than what are those ones that are very
The
loving? The
bonobos.
bonobos. We're closer to baboons than bonobos.
Yes, we
as
absolutely
as a
are.
species. I mean, and I mean that in a biological, ancient way that's not anybody's fault. It just is.
Hmm.
The fact that we know better and can't pull ourselves out of it is our fault.
Now, I recently read about a tribe of baboons where the males contracted some sort of disease and the majority of them died off. And this particular tribe of baboons then became a matriarchal society. And they did a hell of a lot better than when the males were in charge. And scientists have been studying this tribe of baboons for quite a while because it's, I mean, completely
Interesting. That makes me want to go and find a tribe of bonobos and take the women away and see
see what happens. No, we don't want to do that.
No, but I'm no. No, we don't want to, but I'm just as a thought experiment.
Yeah.
Okay. Individual versus relational self. Liberal justice assumes a self that precedes its social relations. And see, that's what I was arguing against. You are not a self-aware self until you've already been plenty socialized.
Yeah.
I don't see how we don't remember that. You're being socialized immediately. You're socialized inside because you're hearing plenty.
Exactly.
So I don't, there's no possibility that we're born tabula rasa, right?
Yeah,
Blank slate.
I believe that you are correct.
So, all right, but liberal justice assumes a self that now maybe it doesn't mean precedes as in comes before temporally. Maybe it means comes before legally. That's different. I didn't think of it like that before. Liberal justice assumes a self that precedes its social relations, choosing, contracting, bearing rights. Bearing rights to a point, yes, but contracting, I'm sorry, before you're cognitively aware enough to have a contract with another person, you're quite socialized. We don't even want you to do that until you're an adult.
Well, yeah, legally we are not allowed to until we're an adult.
Whereas we do informally contract with our children all the time, if you do this, I'll do this type of thing, right? But that is socializing them.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Everything that we do, our upbringing, raising our children, everything we do is we're culturally
Bummer for that, isn't it?
influencing them. I know.
Jesus. Um, okay, so communitarians, communitarians, people who live on communes. Is that they don't? 'Cause otherwise, they'd say communists, right? Communitarians, feminists, Ubuntu philosophers, I love it,
Mm.
and Confucian traditions all contest this. The self is constituted by relationships, roles, and communities it did not choose.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what we're saying.
Along with plenty that you choose as you get older.
Hmm.
If you're lucky anyway. If the relational self is correct, justice cannot be designed from behind a veil of ignorance. It must emerge from within particular forms of life, making universal principles permanently suspect.
Well, here we are again with waffle words because pretty much everything is permanently suspect.
But going back, there is a self that precedes its social relations, not in a logical or temporal way, but you feel yourself. Excuse me. You're aware of yourself, and by necessity, your perspective is what comes first. So, in that sense, there's a self that precedes. It's just that it's shaped by those other things. That's why it's not temporally or logically preceding.
Right. I mean, except for the percentage of people who don't have any internal dialogue going on, I think that we all have that perspective. I mean, we sit within ourselves and we look out at our community, which is family, which is school, which
I
is
think the people
job.
who don't, sorry,
And very frequently feel disconnected from that. Like, who am I really within this? These people don't understand me.
right? Interestingly enough, though, Robert, who claims not to have the inner dialogue or inner mono, whatever,
mhm,
still expresses all those things. And I don't understand. I understand that I have both verbal and nonverbal voices,
mhm.
so to speak. I don't know that one is a voice. It's a knowingness. He feels like he has a knowingness, even though I don't think he talks to himself the way that I just don't know. I may have to quiz him more about
Well,
that.
it's really hard to know what's going on in somebody else's head because we're not in it.
Well, it's true. And it could be that what I'm calling something, he experiences and calls it something.
Yeah,
I don't
something
know.
else.
But I may have to talk to him about it some more because that is interesting. And it is puzzling because I don't think I could live without it.
Right.
Okay, so are you an individual first or a member of a community first? You see how what I mean about how one's very academic and then the other is so much more conversational?
Yes.
So I didn't realize though that it's still a lot of repetition, so it's harder to have. I thought that there might have been more conversation from the second one, but we're very intellectual, and so we're able to, it's not quite the way I thought, but that's okay. So you an individual first, remember for community first. A lot of justice theory assumes that people are basically separate individuals who come together and make agreements. Of course, that's what our culture tells us.
Yes. And well, I mean, just even the very basic unit of a family.
Is separate people that.
Yeah.
All right, but wait, because now I have to hear this other. All right, but many traditions, African, Asian, Indigenous, and others, say that's backwards. You don't exist apart from your family, your community, and your relationships. Who you are is shaped by those connections. Well, that's true too.
Yes, it is.
Well, but so our society ebbs and flows, and both of those things happen, no? Separate families,
Hmm.
but but you're part of the greater similar community, perhaps, back in the day, more.
More. Well, yeah, we have been getting farther away from close-knit communities.
We have liberals in particular, but an awful lot of people in our country live in rural communities like Clear Lake Oaks,
Hmm.
where everybody knows everybody and you meet and marry people often from inside your community.
Yes. Well, I lived in a small town like that in
Yes,
the
you
Midwest
did.
for a while, and yeah, I experienced that.
Hmm.
So,
So when you think about it that way, that sounds more like the way that these guys see it. But Americans have been taught to see themselves as individuals first.
Yeah, we certainly have. That's sort of part of our national identity
And
that
you're
we're pioneers and,
mhm.
Mhm.
You're supposed to grow up, and cowboys. We're supposed to grow up and move
Yeah,
out,
yes, and make our way in the world by
which is why
ourselves,
when
right?
so many young men aren't able to do that, they're very angry.
Yeah.
I think that's why
Well,
young women probably aren't as angry, because first of all, that there seem to be more opportunities right now. Or young, I don't know, they're maturing and thriving a little bit more so. I'm not sure
well,
why.
I think a big part of it too is with that philosophy in mind. Like the millionaires and billionaires like to present themselves as self-made individuals, and in reality, there is no such thing because none of us become what we become without having had influence or help or
No.
assistance or a leg up from someone or a community.
Or like for me, I couldn't afford to go to college and my parents weren't going to help me. My dad wouldn't even sign papers for me to get financial aid. He said it's none of their business. So he didn't care if I didn't get opportunities. But the government, on the other hand, stepped in and provided me with the not with living expenses, I had to work, but with tuition and books and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
So that I mean I was gonna have to take care of myself regardless, right? So it does take a village and nobody, I mean, Donald talks about being a self-made man, but didn't he get like the equivalent of about $400 million?
Well, his start came from his father, and
And he
he
took the
got
other's inheritance
and
along
he
with
yes, and he
his
got
own.
bailed out how many times along the way. So yeah.
That's true. And now they're
Mhm.
doing like insider trading and there's been fraud and all this other stuff apparently. So
Yeah, let's make
he's
a
real
big
self-made.
announcement at a press conference so that my buddies can,
Yeah.
make $450 million in the stock market before the day's over.
And my sons, let's
Yes.
not forget
Mhm.
that, yeah, who are probably have plenty of his tokens to anyway, moving on. Who you are is shaped by those connections. If that's true, then justice can't just be about protecting individuals. It has to be about the health of communities and relationships too.
Yes. Then when we get to justice, it
Mm,
gets even more complicated,
no
doesn't
kidding,
it?
huh? So it's the same kind of thing. I keep talking about I want to do something for the community, right? Well, I had to, I have to narrow it down. So we're picking people right now that are between, our big group is 14 to 30, but we've narrowed it down to start with 18 to 24. Well,
Mhm.
my position is though, if you're working with 18 to 24-year-olds, you're working with people who often have babies, particularly in poor communities.
Yes.
That's double-edged sword. That means you have to do something for those babies. You have to be able to acknowledge them and either let them bring their babies or give childcare. If you're going to help these poor people, babies are part of the equation.
Yes.
The good part of that is you get started influencing the babies. I think that the people that we most of anybody that we need to give of from the government are pregnant women, pregnant anybody, because if they don't get the proper nutrition and medical care, you're already hurting the next generation.
Yes.
We need to make sure that we're not hurting the next generation because our country goes into a blighted situation. So when we want to help these people, I think we have to bring in Head Start. We have to start looking into maternity care. We have to start looking into are people getting their prenatal care and all these kinds of things and helping them with their children and then having some kind of a preschool. Otherwise, we're not going to help these people.
Yes. And in my opinion, this is exactly what being pro-life should be about.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And with these kinds of programs in place, fewer people, at least some people wouldn't choose to have an abortion.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, some still
I mean, I
will.
think if we supported women that we are insisting have the babies,
Ugh,
um, outcomes would be better and different.
outcomes. That's a funny word to pick for having babies. um, so okay, so now we're gonna go back up here to 5. Dessert. And yes, it is. You're just desserts.
Okay.
Dessert versus impartiality. So in ancient times, they thought that you got things based on how much you were worth, your value as a person in the community, or what you deserve. In other words, you get your
Just
just
dessert.
desserts. Ancient justice distributed according to worth. You received what your nature, role, or contribution merited. They thought that was a true meritocracy. Modern justice increasingly demands impartiality. Outcomes should not depend on birth, identity, or social position. Still not impartial. Because how can you be impartial? Each person is an individual, and unless they all become numbers and you're just picking out of a hat, and even then, you have to get into the hat anyway. The conflict runs deep. Desert claims feel intuitively just, but always embed prior hierarchies. Impartiality claims feel procedurally fair, but can produce outcomes that violate deep moral intuitions about merit and responsibility. So remember what I was saying a minute ago about how if your great 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 granddaddy improved the land, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's impartiality claims feel. Oh no, it's the other one. Yeah, desert claims feel intuitively just, but always embed prior hierarchies.
Right.
So whoever got rich a long time ago, their family's still benefiting today
Mm-hmm.
for no
No reason other than
dessert,
somebody 12 generations ago did something.
and maybe did something horrendous.
You
We don't
yeah,
know.
you don't know.
I think overall the ruling class did a lot of horrendous things.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know about individuals as well. Um, Impartiality claims feel procedurally fair. So you have a rule and you all agree on the rule, but then when you apply the rule, some people are consistently fucked over.
Well, it's because it doesn't take into consideration that not everybody starts from the same line.
Well, and
You
this
know?
is why the ancient Greeks were worried about a pure democracy. They were worried about the whole idea that poor people, if all the poor people, and there's always more poor people, get to
Mhm.
vote, they're going to do things that are better for poor people.
Right.
And that scared them. That is still what they're running from. The aristocracy the oligarchs that we're dealing with, that's still what they're worried about. Is that we're going to take away their goodies and their toys and redistribute it so the rest of us can eat.
I know. We're just horrible that way. Um, well, it also, comes down to the difference between equality and equity. And,
Mhm.
and I think equity,
Like with the boxes and that
yeah,
in the meme.
yeah, looking over the fence. And
Mhm.
and that has to be a big consideration when you're applying justice if you want it to be even-handed.
It does, but then see, this is where you run into some other things. I'm seeing this as a tax person, right? And having these discussions because
Mhm.
it's almost like my clients are a focus group a little bit. I have some of the same discussions and I'm hearing patterns. Um, People are very concerned with people who don't work but get a lot of credit. And they're saying, I work my butt off and I'm having to pay the IRS. And I'm going, some people get a lot of credit because they paid a lot in.
Yeah.
So it, they, they're constantly talking about how the rules are benefiting this other person and themselves. And I don't recall the point I was trying to make when I started that sentence.
Well, it's okay. You've had a long day. But I think that that's sort of human nature, that we're always looking at what somebody else has. Grass is greener.
Mm,
I work hard and they seem to have it so easy. How did they get what they have? But we don't always see the internal struggles that other people go
that's
through
right.
to obtain the things that they have. So,
Right. Well, but since like somebody today was very upset because he owed money. But the thing is, by just looking at it, you have a job. The job pulled out this much. Your tax bill is this much. And you got to pay the rest of it. It's not theft. You just
right. So
no.
adjust your with,
I gave him
withholding.
W-4.
Mm-hmm.
He was still mad, but not at me, thank goodness. Some of them get mad at us. Anyway, whole other discussion. Should justice give people what they deserve or treat everyone the same? Well, in that sense, just putting it that boldly, duh, right?
Yeah.
But that's also because we are more liberal, we're more to that side. Somebody who is more to the conservative side would say that
But I think if we treated everyone the same by giving everyone what they deserve,
that's interesting. So well, it's sort of like taxes. We take from people the taxes on a progressive basis. That's not really the word I want to gradiated. Is that how what I want to say? graduated.
Graduated.
I'm not sure. I know what I mean, though. So, anyway, one view says justice means giving people what they've earned, reward hard work, punish bad behavior, recognize real differences in effort and ability. And I would say, well, yeah,
Sure.
of course,
Mhm.
if it, but except for the waffle words,
Right.
except for the fact that how do you know how hard someone's working? I mean, for example, right this moment, looking at my productivity in the workplace and yours.
Mhm.
Is it because you're lazy and I'm not?
No.
Is it because perhaps I have a specific goal that I'm working toward? You don't have that particular goal? That's
No.
close. Yeah.
Well,
Because I want my
I,
social security flow. So I'm working in good part because I have to work or I'm never going to get my social security.
okay.
You could do what I'm doing for the rest of your life and you will not get more anything benefit other than just the work and the pay.
Right.
So yeah, it's because I have a specific goal. I don't know what I'm going to do after I earn that. We'll see. I'm so tired right now. It doesn't sound fun anymore, but it'll be fine. But that's what I'm saying. So how do you know how hard someone's working? People used to say about my sister that if she'd only apply herself more. How do you know she's not applying herself? I'm the one that didn't apply myself. I got easy grades because school just happened to come easy for me.
Mhm.
My sister liked to tinker with machines. They didn't care about that in school. I couldn't tinker with machines. And everybody kept saying I was smart and she wasn't. And I was like, mm-mm.
No, it's just a different sort of
Completely different kind of
smartness.
intelligence, exactly. And so she ended up thinking she was dumb, she absorbed that. But then they used to say she was cute, and so they got her thinking she was dumb and me thinking I was ugly. That was what they did when we were little.
Yes, this is the kind of conditioning we put upon our children.
Right? Isn't that great? Um, okay. So, but see, when you put it just that way, do we want to reward the person who works hard? Sure. But do we want to say that the slave that works hard doesn't get beaten? See, that's rewarding the one that works hard, but somehow that's not a good justice system.
No, it is not. And, I was thinking too that this kind of comes down to communism in a little way, where they say that each to their own ability, each to their own,
Well, that's why I
you
do
know,
believe in a certain amount of socialism.
because
That's
like,
why I'm a democratic socialist more than a capitalist.
mhm. I mean, because you really, I mean, you can't compare. Like, so I'm retired. I'm disabled. I have limitations, but people don't see what I do here in my house for me to get by every day.
And then there's that.
And I'm
There's
working
that.
as hard as I possibly can to maintain a life for myself. So how do you compare that to someone who's out there breaking rocks with a sledgehammer in the hot sun all day? I mean,
That was a weird thing to grab.
well,
I don't know.
I'm
How would I compare being in a wheelchair and working around your house to somebody with a sledgehammer in the hot sun all
Well,
day?
they have the capacity to be smashing rocks.
Me,
I don't.
right. No, I know
So,
what you meant, but I went immediately to the slave and I go, oh, see, I really took it all the way. And I was thinking that how do you compare the person who's sort of enslaved by circumstances to a certain extent and is working as hard as they can here, and the person who's pushed to their capacity or further with, I don't know. My mind went all the way. Okay.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. But I mean, it makes sense. You cannot.
No,
I
you
was
can't.
just thinking about though that what about the person who labors like a firefighter or somebody who literally works in the quarry versus the slave that's working that hard in terms of rewarding hard work and capacity. You see, you want to reward hard work, but you have people that are in prisons and you have all these things going on, and you have kids who work really hard and don't succeed at school, and they're told they're below grade level, and their parents are told sad things. And it sounds good.
Hmm.
Um, Another view says justice means treating people fairly regardless of background, identity, or circumstance. No one should get more just because of who their parents were. Well, see, again, I agree with that. You don't serve food and go, oh, the PTA president's child is here. You get 2 scoops. You don't do that. That's
Right.
rude. But what if you're serving kids all day and you see the kid that didn't have breakfast and ain't gonna have dinner and you give them 2 scoops? Now you're treating them better because of their circumstances. Is it wrong though?
I know.
And some people would
Yeah.
tell me that's a horrible thing to do. The other children would feel bad. I'm like, and then if you explain it, you make that kid feel bad.
Right.
So it's very complicated,
Yes, it is. That's what makes life so freaking hard.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's really hard to, I mean, to say we should do everything that we do, the choices that we make based on what's right, what's moral, what's ethical. But not everyone has the capacity or the desire to be moral and right and ethical.
even we don't, if you, depending on whose but morality, right? Now,
And yes.
do I or do I not have extra?
Mm-hmm.
Don't I? I have way more than I need to survive.
Right.
Should I therefore be going around giving all of it away? It would be moral.
Mm-hmm.
It would be ethical. It would be more ethical than keeping it all to myself in my value system even.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I? I told you part of it's because I'm playing the long game with the education and trying to really improve the community, not just handing out my resources, but where's that line?
Yeah. Well, I think the line is different for each of us. And, that's why it's complicated.
Right. But when you're saying always acting morally, I'm afraid that's also a waffle word because what in the circumstances is moral?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I've got different competing systems of morality. Like what I would do if I were designing the world is different than the way that I feel like I have to behave now being born into this circumstance. I don't believe in land ownership like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in a lot of indigenous values. What can I do with that? Not have a house? Well, what does that really do for anybody in the world?
Right.
I can hurt myself all the like the guy that self-immolated.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, and I get how he felt, and I get that he was screaming. But now Gaza's still all broken up and he's gone. And he
Yes.
suffered for nothing. He could have burnt an effigy and still been here screaming and yelling.
Right.
I don't know. So did he felt he did the moral thing. I sort of think he wasted his life, and I don't think that that was moral in a different system.
Mm-hmm.
The no one should get more just because of their parents were. The trouble is that figuring out what someone truly deserves is almost impossible without also asking whether they started from the same place as everyone else.
Yes. Yeah.
And even if you start at the same place, you don't stay at the same place.
No, because we all run the race different.
When you and I were around 18 and you were tall and you were gorgeous and you looked more mature and you had certain advantages, certain cultural, there were certain things. How do I know? Because I can tell. I know who I was, and I was a little ruffian. I totally know who I was. You looked very much like you would have had particular advantages. But over time, with disabilities and with different things that happen, grieving and things that I didn't have to deal with, we've perhaps become that's not a great
No,
analogy,
I
but you
understand what
kind of
you're
get what I
saying.
mean.
Right.
Even to the point where our heights are more alike because you're sitting. No, but I just meant that at
Yeah.
one particular time in both of our lives, I grew up with a mom that was on welfare. You grew up in very different kinds of circumstances and with kids, diplomats, and things.
Yeah.
And ostensibly, you could have married a different type of person than you ended up marrying who could have swept you away and given you this other life.
Well, I was being groomed by my school and my education to
That's where I was going.
marry a rich, politically connected man and manage his household.
And
That
you
was
had the
what I was groomed for.
mannerisms and the education, and you had the culture to do so.
Yes.
Which is what you just said.
And I
And I
rejected it
did not.
all.
I know. And
Yeah.
I didn't have anything of the sort. However, what was I being groomed for? I could have married into a Jewish family and I could have maybe been part of a synagogue and had so that's
Right.
I don't even know if they were grooming me for that, but I'm just trying to come up with anything. They did nothing. They were pieces of caca and they didn't raise me to be anything. But my point is that I was able to do things with my life to build myself up to have more of the kinds of advantages and place in life that you have.
Yeah.
So,
And I rejected the advantages and, forged my own path. And
mhm. And then, like I said,
um,
you've had to grieve. You've had three different really big things to grieve that I have not at all have any. I know I was upset last year and I'm still upset, and I know that was a big deal. It's not the same thing. It's not the same
Well,
thing.
I mean, grief is grief, Heidi. You know,
I
it's
know, and I'm not downplaying my own, just like I don't downplay my own abuse anymore. I know better. It's still not the same thing as losing a mate and a baby and twice. It's just not. And your disabilities, I can't even. I I can't. I can see and I can intellectually understand, but I can't know.
oh, come on, having one leg ain't so bad.
Well, yeah, I gave it up for what was it? Gas. That's right, for gasoline.
Yes, to fill my tank with gas.
That was so funny. Okay. Uh See, we're getting worked up over some of this. Oh, that was that one. So
That's
six.
a little punchy too.
Yeah, but it probably makes for good TV.
I hope you're all enjoying this.
Rhonda's probably having she lulled again, so I don't know if that's a new lulls or an old lulls,
I
but
don't know either.
okay. Procedure versus substance. Can justice be achieved by following the right rules regardless of outcomes? Of course not. What right rules?
Who's right rules?
Right. Or and right rules forever, or right rules for the situation, or right rules for yeah.
Right.
Or do outcomes themselves determine whether justice has been done? Not always that either, because who's evaluating the outcomes? Like, excuse me, let's look at the oil situation. The outcomes for many, many people are not as good as the outcomes for those people who happen to own mineral rights.
True.
So the outcome for those people that have the mineral rights and say, oh, well, the war in Iran must be a good thing because look at the outcome, is not sufficient,
No.
even for the people getting the outcome.
No, I agree. I agree. It's annoying.
Hmm. Procedural frameworks, Kant, Rawls, constitutional liberalism, hold that fair rules generate legitimate results even when unequal.
No.
Substantive frameworks, Marxist, feminist, critical race, hold that formally neutral procedures operating on unequal ground reproduce injustice.
Both of those statements have value, though.
I know, but I know it is true that sometimes somebody might even break the rules a bit, and if the outcomes come out great, everybody's all, yay, that was a good idea, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or
I mean, it's complicated. I mean, there's nothing that we're talking about that has easy answers.
uh-uh, no, not a bit of it. The choice between them is not merely philosophical. It determines what counts as a just society. I I appreciate the dialectical tension between the opposites that we're coming up with and
Right.
that we're talking about. But the tension between them is where the reality is and where all the discussion should be. It's that it is the tension, it is the discussion, it is the fluid movement of these norms and mores and values that make culture
Yes.
and justice,
Yes, very
right?
much so.
So the difference is, do you follow the rules and say that by following the rules, whatever happens, happens? Or, and it's right because you followed the rules, or do you say that no matter how you get there, if things are good in the end? And it's exactly the same problem. Who decides the rules and who decides if the outcomes are good?
Right. And does and justify means.
It depends who gets hurt with the means. And so much of this is perspective too. Like imagine, you know how they always have that conductor thing? Whether you kill the one person or the five people or
Right.
however that is.
On the yeah.
Okay, they always make you be the conductor.
Mm-hmm.
What if you were the one person?
Yeah.
Isn't your perspective going to say that something different would be the good?
Right.
Especially if you don't know about the other five.
Mm-hmm.
Get that train away from me.
Exactly.
What if you're one of the five? You're gonna spare that guy and kill all of us. I mean, your perspective is real different. The dilemma is only the conductor.
Yeah.
So
And most of us
hmm,
are never the conductor.
I was just thinking that in real life, who's the conductor?
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to make the laws or be the judge. Oh, so the powers that be are the conductor.
Yeah, and then we have like our symbol of justice, you know, the lady holding the scales and she's
Mm.
blindfolded. I don't see how justice can be blindfolded. I think you have to be very clear-eyed to look at
Well,
what is really justice.
I agree. So here's what I'm thinking though. Again, perspective. So a black guy robs a store, white guy robs a store. They come before you. You are blind in the sense of who it was that robbed the store, and you say you robbed the store, you will have to have a consequence, whatever the consequence is. There's the blind justice that seems fair.
Hmm.
But now when you go to apply the consequences, and this kid comes from this privilege, this, that, and the other, and he was stealing for sport or because he didn't like the fact that the store was owned by an Asian, whereas this kid has a hungry family.
Hmm.
And so now when you go to apply the consequences, you might have to take that into account.
Yes.
But that was just that situation. I don't know if that always works that way or not.
I
It's
I
complicated.
well, yeah, we're back to that again.
Yes.
It's freaking complicated. It's like a Facebook status, right? It's complicated.
Right? But I do agree that there's places where justice must be blind. For example, it shouldn't matter that Donald Trump was president if he stole documents or if he committed fraud or he raped somebody. It shouldn't matter,
What his status is.
or who his daddy was, or
Or how
who
much
his
money
friends
he
are.
has.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So in that sense, justices should be blind.
right.
I personally think that a president should be extra held accountable for breaking the law, not under accounted for. I think,
Oh, I agree. There are some people in society, positions in society, for example, police officers. I think
mhm,
they should be held to a higher
mhm,
standard of behavior.
right? I think if you and I saw somebody fall down in the road and we went over and we didn't know what to do and we called 911 and just stood there like this, that's normal.
Hmm.
If a paramedic did that, they should be held accountable.
Yes,
Something like that.
yes. I mean,
Ooh,
yeah.
I did one time in Santa Rosa. My friend and I were walking along and we saw somebody just down. And we did call the police and we stayed there and everything. We were like, oh, they were alive. That was the best we could figure out. They're breathing. We didn't want to get too close. Okay. 6. Does justice depend on following the right rules or getting the right results? So, when you put it that way, that bluntly in that 8th grade level, because
Mhm.
that's how I got it to make it conversational. I said 8th grade. Um, it seems so obvious to me that the results are more important in the end. Uh-huh. The
Mhm.
trap, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Hmm.
Because the rules protect people. Like, for example, if you want as your result to get more black kids into Harvard, say, and the way you do it is by deciding that instead of women getting to go to Harvard, you're going to bring in black men instead. Well, you did get more black kids at Harvard. You achieved your goal.
But you harmed someone else in the process.
Yeah, and you did a stupid thing along the way. And so I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a great example, but that's how the trap works a little bit.
Hmm.
All right. Some people say justice is about having fair rules that everyone follows equally. If the process is fair, the outcome is fair, even if some people end up with more than others. See, again, if you just said that, I might even be persuaded to agree with that to a certain extent. For example, you cut the cake and you cut the cake by certain rules, not everybody's going to get icing. Oh, well, too bad.
Hmm.
But that's so trivial, right? I can say in trivial things that kids should suck it up if they don't get as much as another kid,
Right.
but not this kid gets the entire cake and you over there get to lick his ass. That is not the
That's
kind
not
of
justice.
right? And I feel like we have that kind of society. Donald and his ilk get a whole cake,
Hmm.
and some people are expected to kiss their butts.
Right.
And I don't mean his cabinet. I didn't mean that kind of kissing his butt either. Others say that if the results are deeply unequal or harmful, the rules weren't actually fair no matter how they looked on paper. Mm.
Yeah, we're into interpretable stuff again.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. I'm not convinced that rules can be fair. I think rules can be unfair. I think there can be obvious injustice. I think justice is more difficult to get to. So, like pornography, we all know it when we see it.
I guess so. I think justice is a little bit more complicated than pornography, but
You'd think so. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, we should know it when we see it. Um,
Well, I mean, George Floyd, injustice.
mm,
Everybody seems to have thought that for the most part. I mean, everybody. Um, what's his name? Aubrey something. The one where the guys in the truck followed him around and then
yes,
and then ended up shooting him because they
yes,
got scared,
right,
supposedly.
supposedly.
That's obviously injustice.
Hmm.
What would be justice for people if they truly believe that their neighborhood is being infiltrated by the other? I don't know what to do with that. Because on the one hand, the way it is, I find that repellent and disgusting.
Hmm.
But from let me switch it around a little bit. I don't like this. I'm doing this for a philosophical argument, but it makes me uncomfortable and dirty feeling. Okay. But let's suppose that instead of it being people with another color, it was literally tigers or it was aliens or something like that.
Hmm.
Well, then we would definitely feel that we had the right to object to that and not let them be there.
Right.
Unfortunately, these people see it that way. So, what's justice? Is it justice that we force them to live with our values? Is it justice that they can force their values on others? If they have an all white town, is it justice for us to say, I'm so sorry, you have to let other people live there?
Hmm.
Hmm. And while I obviously have feelings and I don't even like discussing the possible. I didn't even like the idea of replacing people of color with an animal or an alien because I felt like that feeds into that whole imagery that I'm
Or
objecting
we
to.
could like fence off portions of Wyoming and just allow them to have their little white society there and let them be.
I think we should put them on Epstein's Island.
I think that's where Trump should go. I think we should just convince him that we're giving him a kingdom and put him on the island, limit
They,
his Wi-Fi access,
they
and
were saying, tell him
yeah,
he's still president, but that we've moved the White House to Mar-a-Lago and let him sit there
yeah.
and president all he wants. Uh, So others say that if the results are deeply unequal or harmful, the rules weren't actually fair no matter how they looked on paper. Think of it this way. A race is only fair if everyone starts at the same line. Fair rules applied to an unfair starting point don't produce fair results. Yeah. And what if you have people of different running abilities and what you want to do? And so you start them at different.
I'm thinking the same thing. What if you've got somebody who had their shoelaces tied together? Then
Right? You're all starting at the same.
uh-huh.
Oh my God. But it's not so much that what we're coming up with is so reasonable, so much as the idea that if we can think of that like that, then how many other little factors are there in all of this so that even a simple race isn't that simple?
Right.
Because who's racing
Hmm.
is also important. Are we trying to figure out how fast you run, how quickly you get off, or you're
That you can even finish the race at all, no matter how long it takes you,
well,
or
that's true. If you
what,
and I are at the same starting point,
Yeah, you'd be long gone.
well, no, because you got wheels. So I
Oh,
don't know. It could be an interesting race, but I'm just saying if you and I were at the same starting point with our different abilities, it's not really a fair race.
no.
I mean, it would make a difference if it was uphill or downhill. If you were in this chair, it would make a big difference.
Well, I mean, and you could have, like the Olympics for this year. So if you took the regular Olympians and the Paralympians and you put them at the same starting point, I mean, this is exactly what you're
What are the
saying.
power? I've not really.
Paralympians.
Oh, Para Olympians,
Yeah.
right? Well, you could take all the gold medal winners, and you're going to have ostensible. I don't know about running as much. I think women compete better with men in running than they do in some other sports.
Hmm.
Right? Anything with arms and hands, I think, is harder for women relative to men than leg things.
Could be.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the latest record, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I would take gender very much out of competitive sports. I would take the
I'm
concept of gender
100%
out.
with you there.
I would have weight class, and I I think that there's needs to be discussion. Does hormone level matter at all? Does chromosome matter at all? If they don't,
Mhm.
they don't. What does body composition have to do? What does skeletal? I might look at some of that, and then you have classes of
Yeah, I mean,
competition.
there have to be different ways of rating the abilities of the individual athletes that have nothing to do with whatever their gender is. So,
I
yeah.
might even then say that somebody who won a certain class so many times might need to move up to the next class for a bit.
Mhm.
I don't know though, because then you sort of take away somebody's. I don't know. See, they don't want me in charge of anything. I'd overthink it. I would make new categories and new rules, and I would piss off everybody. Everybody. Okay, so I think we're on 7. Retribution versus restoration. Two fundamentally different answers to the question of what justice requires when wrong has been done. Retribution locates justice in proportional punishment, harm answered with harm, balance restored through suffering. Well, that's taking it a little extra far. Restoration locates justice in repair of relationships, communities, and persons. The philosophical stakes go deeper than criminal policy. Retribution assumes justice is backward looking and quantitative. Restoration assumes it's forward looking and relational. Neither fully satisfies the demands of the other.
No, it
Mm.
doesn't. I mean, because some things are not repairable. If someone has murdered someone, you can't fix that. That person is gone. No matter what they might do to give to the family of the person who was murdered, it still does not bring that person back. So
I
that's
see what you mean. If somebody stole money, they can give you the money back and maybe reduce their sentence. But if they've killed somebody, they need to be punished because there's nothing that they can do to, there's no anything. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, but then does punish, well, obviously someone, ah, my brain's just finding all the little objections to what even I'm saying,
I
it's,
know.
yeah,
I know. Because on the one hand, punishing the person doesn't help you either.
no, it doesn't do anything for anybody.
But don't people sit there and beg for them to punish the person? So it must do something.
Well, I mean, I think that if you have deprived someone of their life, the very least that should happen to you is that you are deprived of your liberty, because you should not be given another opportunity to go out there and do that again.
That's a third kind
So,
of justice, It's not mentioned here. There's punishment. There's reparative, restorative is what I mean,
mhm,
restorative justice. And there's also prevention from further harm.
mhm,
That's not even part of this discussion.
right,
So I think that's very, very, very important that some people need to be locked away so that they don't harm again. Like you get a serial killer, a serial rapist,
or a pedophile,
or a pedophile, screw punishing them, whatever. That may or may
just
not
confine them.
just confine them.
Mhm.
Even taking away their scrotum might not do enough to prevent them from hurting other people because um if you're psychopathy and your narcissism, it might be much stronger than just your sexual urge.
Well, yeah, and having a penis doesn't,
That's why I said scrotum,
well,
or not even scrotum, testicles, not the scrotum.
right.
It's the scrotum. Yeah, I am tired.
I mean,
I know
'cause,
what I meant.
yeah, you can still harm people without having that.
Right.
Mhm.
It's just that they thought that the testosterone itself being produced was part of what created the violence. I don't know if I think that or not. I don't know. There are plenty of violent women. On
Mhm.
the other hand, we don't know their hormones or chromosomes. So it's very difficult to assign anything to gender or sex without having a lot more information.
Right.
Okay, good to know. 7. When something goes wrong, should justice punish or repair?
Mhm.
When someone does something harmful, there are two very different ideas about what justice should do. One says justice means punishment. The person who caused harm should suffer a proportional consequence. An eye for an eye.
Yeah.
The other says justice means repair. Focus on fixing what was broken, healing the people hurt, and figuring out how to prevent it from happening again. Punishment looks backward, repair looks forward. A just system probably needs both, but most systems heavily favor one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
We have a very a punishment-oriented system.
we very much do, and the victims sometimes are just unrepaired.
Yeah.
I personally think that it should start with the reparation. I also think that if you put somebody in prison for harming somebody, they should have to work, and the proceeds, they should be paid minimum wage, but the money should go to their
Yeah,
victims.
to the ones they've harmed.
I mean, they should, the amount that they get paid, they should still get whatever they get, because you have to have something and you have to be able to go to the commissary. You have to, there's a certain dignity even if you're being punished, I
Mhm.
believe. Otherwise, why not just kill them or throw them in a pit? If you're going to keep them and warehouse them, they need to have some human dignity.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, another thing we didn't talk about was rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
That, so you notice that those things aren't part of it. Preventing them from harming other people, and actually,
And yeah, it would be interesting for me to learn what the percentage of actual successful rehabilitation is
well, it would be.
at certain levels.
I agree, except that I don't think it's been done enough to have meaningful statistics on the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we probably could get statistics on how often it's attempted, because that's why I think we have so much recidivism.
Right.
Is that kind of where you were going?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's just, it's a little bit frustrating as you start realizing the complications, because going from the philosophers to the academic language to the more social language, it becomes very obvious to me we're really reaching in history and in philosophy and in some depth for ourselves to get to this level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's complicated.
Yes.
What about people who don't have that ability to do all that analyzing and synthesis? Isn't it easier to just have somebody tell you what to do?
Well, that's why they're watching Fox News.
That's kind of where I was going. That's why they voted for him. That's why they want the authoritarian.
Yeah.
It's complicated, Daddy. Tell us what to do.
Right.
And for me, it's complicated, Daddy. Let me think.
I'd rather have the dilemma and figure it out than to have someone like that tell me what I'm supposed to be thinking.
Yeah. And even though we go to people, I was kind of thinking, is it different? It is different. We go to people like FDR's speech and Obama's speeches, even though I don't like all of it, but either one of them, I don't like everything they did.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point. It's the thinking. I can listen to some of what Biden had to say, and even though I'm horrified that he kept supporting Israel, I think he was wrong. That doesn't mean that his words can't be used and thought through and thought about. Whereas when I listen to Trump's words, it's cockadoo.
It's like nails on a blackboard for me most of the time because
His voice or his words?
everything,
You
everything.
know what's even creepier than listening to him speak is having somebody else read his speech, because it sounds even crazier and stupider.
It sounds like it came from a third grader. Well, no, I mean
No,
third graders.
third
now.
graders are more cogent.
Yeah,
It doesn't. It doesn't. It sounds like it came from. No, it sounds like it comes from an old narcissistic,
demented
demented
fool.
fool. Yeah, because I mean, I taught from first grade all the way, and nobody sounded like that. Even idiot kids didn't sound like that.
No.
Even mean kids didn't sound like. Even bullies didn't sound like that or write like that.
Right. Yeah.
Even bully kids from bully families didn't sound like that. Even racist kids didn't sound like that, damn it. All right. 8. Liberty in tension with equality. These concepts travel together but pull in opposite directions. Unconstrained liberty tends to generate inequality. I move my eyes. Unconstrained liberty tends to generate inequality. Enforced equality tends to constrain liberty. That's what we're dealing with, isn't it?
Yeah.
They want liberty, and we want people to have equal opportunity. We're pushing, I don't even want to say Republicans and Democrats, it's not worth it. The people who are more fascist and anti-democratic are pushing for their liberty. They're people with means. They're people who want their freedoms. They want to just get to do whatever they want, even if it means attacking other countries. We, the people fighting back, the Antifa, if you will,
Yes.
and it's not an organized group, and I'm not admitting anything, but I am anti-fascist.
Oh, you haven't been going to the meetings.
Shh, shh.
Okay.
Soros didn't pay me. I'm on strike.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so um, I don't remember what I was going to say there. That's okay. I'm sure I'll hear that back and go, "You didn't finish that thought."
It's okay. The thought's gone.
It is. These concepts travel together but pull in opposite directions. I said that already. Unconstrained liberty tends to generate inequality, and forced equality tends to constrain liberty. Oh, that's what I was going to say. That what the Antifa people want is we would like for everybody to have opportunity. Honest to God, I don't care if everybody's treated equally. I don't think you can even measure that. I don't know what that would look like.
Mhm.
Do you treat me equally? How would the government treat us equally? They cannot.
No.
It's not even, that's not in anything. But what they can do is to make sure that their rules and laws don't keep one of us in poverty or keep one of us miserable.
Right. At least have equal opportunities or as equal as possible.
See, yeah, I know. And it's not really possible to be equal. Like the opportunities that Trump was able to have, I couldn't give my child.
Right.
It just wasn't, that's not possible. Nor do I expect society to make that possible.
Mhm.
You are going to have people with more means.
Yeah.
Even if just some people are born with bigger muscles, or they're born that they could run faster. My kid happened to be born to have a facility with language.
Hmm.
I don't know where that came from. um, um, every major political tradition is defined by where it draws the line. That's a big statement, isn't it? Every major political tradition is defined by where it draws the line. You know that is a waffle sentence. In a way, it seems like it means something, but it kind of doesn't. Draws what line where? Who?
Mhm.
What line does Christianity draw? What line?
Lately, I haven't seen many.
Good one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but I'm thinking maybe are the Ten Commandments, are those the lines of behavior? Is that kind of what they're getting at? Is that drawing a line?
Well, yeah, I think that you're probably right that that's what they are getting at, but
Every major oh, I said Christianity like it's a political tradition. Well, it is now. Um, Democrats, where do they draw the line? See, I think the lines have been moving. That's kind of where you were getting at earlier.
yeah,
Not now,
they're waffling. They're waffling.
right? Um, The tension is not a problem to be solved, but a permanent structural feature of justice because persons are both equal in some fundamental sense and unequal in capacity, circumstance, and need.
Oh,
Any coherent framework must hold both values without fully honoring either.
that's the whole point.
And that's the complication
Mm,
because then it leaves all this interpretation. Who does all this interpreting? People.
yeah.
And even if it were AI, even if somebody has the bright idea that we have the machines do it, who
People
teaches them?
programmed AI.
Mhm. Can freedom and equality both win at the same time? These two values need each other. See, that's what I meant by the dialectical.
The tension.
But also fight each other. If everyone is completely free to do whatever they want, some people will accumulate enormous power and wealth while others are left with very little. And somehow or another, once they've got all that power and wealth, they turn sadist. I don't know why, but it seems to happen more often than I'd like to admit.
Greed.
So greed, you think, makes people sadistic to keep their. You think that's where that
Because
sadism kind of comes
because
from?
it's a fear of maybe because they know of everything they went through. Well, some of them didn't go through much of anything to get what they have, but still, it's just the thought of trying to get it back if they lose
That's what I was
it
gonna
is
say.
terrifying to
They
them.
would know what they would go through if they had to try to get it again.
Yes,
Because they watch everybody else struggle. They make other people struggle. They know they don't want to be on that side of
right.
it. Ooh, that's kind of profound, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of why the Republicans are so freaked out about being in the minority because they made it miserable. That's part of why white people, some, are terrified of black people being in the majority because they're afraid they're going to turn it around, do to white people what white people did to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'd bother. I think black people would just be like,
I
Run
think they
along
just,
with your
yeah,
stupid
they just
selves. Go
want to
away.
be left alone to live their lives. That's really all they've ever wanted.
Right. And having said that, they're not a monolith and there's all different types.
Yes.
Just saying. Um, right. So some people accumulate enormous wealth and power and wealth, while others are left with very little, which starts to look a lot like unfreedom for those at the bottom. But if you push hard for total equality, you'll end up restricting what people can do with their lives.
Which is a different kind of unfreedom.
Do you? If you
Mm.
push for equality? Well, sure, because you're taking away. If you want everything equal, you're taking away from everybody's money to redistribute, and then you're telling people you can't run that fast and get awards because not everybody can run that fast. How dare you run in front of Leslie? How dare you reach up and use a top shelf in front of Heidi? I'm just saying, so we can't possibly make everything equal. That's ridiculous.
Oh no, yeah.
Justice is not equality. It's not equality that way.
No.
It's more equality in the eyes of the law that you matter. It's you matter equally. That actually is important. And talk about a waffle idea. But you have to matter equally. Your dignity is equal. You have an equal right
Your
to be
value as a
heard.
human being is equal.
Equal.
Yeah.
That's the big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying it's not, and that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but people who've run away from Guatemala to find a better life here, they matter.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what that rule is. They're saying you broke that little rule, now your life is forfeit. That's stupid. Every society has to find a balance, and no society has found one that satisfies everyone. Of course not, because the tension to do for the people that have not pisses off the haves, and the tension to protect what the haves have pisses off the have-nots. That seems like a normal tension.
Yeah, and this also reminds me of conversations we've had about utopia. That utopia is an impossible concept because what is utopia for one person may be
Right.
hell for the next.
And then I was saying that a group of people can come together, develop a utopia, have their kids, raise their families, and the kids all hate it.
Right. And that's not their utopia. So
It will never stay. All right. Find a balance. Societies and so 9. Universalism versus particularity. Justice claims universal. Oh my God.
universality.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It just wouldn't come out. Principles that apply to all persons regardless of culture, history, or position. Well, sure, like you have the right to live. People, everybody has an equal right to not be slaughtered, regardless of culture, history, or position.
I would hope.
But every actual justice system is particular, embedded in specific laws, institutions, traditions, and power relations. Truth. That's why they were talking about can he pardon himself? And one of the attorneys that I watched, I don't remember which one it was. Let me maybe. Anyway, he was saying that it's never been tested. Oh, it's Glenn Kirshner. It's never been tested. So there's no case law. There's no precedent.
No
There's
precedent.
nothing in the law that says he cannot. And the only way that there would be any law is if somebody tried to do it and then it was challenged in court.
Right.
I bet he tries. I bet he tried. I think they should ignore him, let him pardon himself federally, and then charge him with something in every state. There's nothing you can do about it.
Here, tie him up until he takes his last breath.
Ew. It's just that I just think it would be icky to have to be the one to take care of him.
Uh-huh.
Maybe have all of his sycophants have to Anyway, I can come up with really awful tortures for all of them that don't sound like tortures but would be. Um and non-Western, indigenous, and communitarian frameworks expose how much of what passes for universal justice is Western, modern, and liberal in disguise.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I want more of that particular idea because they made liberal in this case kind of negative.
Mm-hmm.
But from that perspective, right? The challenge is not to abandon universalism, that forfeits too much, but to hold it honestly, aware of its origins and the exclusions built into its history. That was a tease and very vague afterwards. So let's see. What passes as universal justice is Western.
Is crime and consequence or crime and punishment?
I don't think
Is that
so.
is
I don't think that's Western. But maybe what we consider crime, how we relate to it, what we do about it. I think that I might have to look into other cultures more because this was a bit of Western discussion for the most part.
Mhm. Well, I mean, so something that is not Western, would that be like getting your hand cut off if you
I
steal
don't think
something?
that's
No,
what they
that's
meant.
Western
I
too.
don't think that's exactly what they mean, and that's the problem. They didn't. Well, maybe this will clear some of that up.
Okay.
Let's see. Are the rules of justice the same for everyone, everyone, everywhere? Or do they depend on culture? Well, when you put it that way, it's clear that it depends on
Of
culture.
course it does.
So I think maybe I misinterpreted what they said. Maybe what they were saying is the idea that everything is universal or should be is something that Western people have said in order to kind of put their culture everywhere. I think that's more what they were getting at, but let's see. Justice claims to be universal. The same rules should apply to all people in all places. But in practice, most ideas about justice developed in specific places and were shaped by specific histories, usually Western and European ones. Well, in our discussions, I don't know that people in Japan, for example, center their discussions around Western thought.
Right.
I hope not, actually. People from other traditions have pointed out that what gets called universal justice often just means one particular culture's values applied to everyone else. The challenge is figuring out whether there are genuine shared principles underneath the differences, or whether every community ultimately defines justice for itself. Well, I'm going to say that I think generally something like wantonly killing people in your neighborhood is probably fairly universally looked down upon.
And yeah,
I think so. But
Mhm.
is that just my biased Western perspective? I know that like in Japan, theft was almost unthinkable. You could leave your wallet somewhere and somebody would turn it into the police with every penny in it.
Mhm.
30 years ago.
Right.
I don't know now. Um, I know a lot's changed culturally over there. Um,
Now that would not happen in the Philippines, so this culture
well, then of
completely
course
different.
nobody said that Asian has a universal. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just that just because something is in your culture an obvious rule doesn't make it the way that I mean shaking hands is something that we think is all very universal,
And yeah.
or doing this, doing something like that or like
Mhm.
that. There's all these different things that mean different things in different places.
Mhm.
So in that sense, no mores are universal possibly,
Yeah.
or few. And again, when we say murder and we say we think that's maybe universal, I believe murder then becomes a waffle word because what we consider to be murder might not be what they consider. They'll do things like listen to me, other cultures though, that there could be an honor killing.
Mm.
She won't marry who the parents want
So
her to
wait,
marry.
yes.
But then what about people who are in our culture and citizens here who still carry that out from their culture? What is that now? Whose tradition? That's weird.
And it has happened here.
It has
It has
indeed.
happened in this country.
Um, the challenge is figuring out whether there are genuine shared principles underneath the differences or whether every community ultimately defines justice for itself. We cannot, because they just define justice for themselves and they're killing people in Iran. You have to have some shared values. You have to be able to discuss and have some universal principles. The world is too small.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is.
But look how we handle it here. That's one thing I do admire is our federal system, our federalist system. Because the fact right now that the executive branch only controls the federal government, not the various states, is saving our butts. I think if we didn't have that, he would have taken over everything by now.
Hmm.
He can't just go into the states and just do whatever's.
You have a point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think that having things be decided differently in different places, different people having different kinds of authority is kind of a good idea. It's been much harder for him. He couldn't do what he wanted to do in California or in Minnesota.
Minnesota, right.
Whereas we're not hearing as much about what he's done. I mean, like he took all those ballots and things, he took those in red states.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are now on 10, I believe. Yeah, 10. The unfinished argument. Liberty and justice are not problems philosophy has solved and politics has failed to implement. They are genuinely open questions. The concepts themselves are contested. Their scope is expanding to future generations, non-human beings, global populations. Excuse me. They're leaving out something important. Remember back in the day, they said if they gave rights to gay people, next thing you know, we'd have bestiality and pedophilia. Remember all that? And while I still think that's ridiculous for various reasons, like it's not a continuum and all that, it is true that gays got rights and now trans people want rights. And the people who don't want any of those people are going, see, see, see.
Gosh, giving human beings rights.
But now look
What
at
a
but
concept.
what about the pedophiles?
But they're not human beings.
Oh, but they are.
I know.
I know you know. I'm just saying though, we don't like pedophilia. But is that I mean, now see, there's a difference here too. This is another controversial thing that I'm uncomfortable with, but it's the truth. There's a difference between touching children and petting them and grooming them and giving them sexual feelings and eating them, meaning literally cannibalism, beating them, making them cry and scream and doing things that they hate. Neither's okay. I'm not suggesting these people are just fine. I am saying though that there's a difference, and I can imagine a world in which some people would think this was fine.
Well, there are societies and groups in our world
Like the
who
norm,
claim that it's a normal thing, a natural thing.
wasn't there something about
That
something
Manavoid
between
Society
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
something.
that one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like
Nambla.
yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just disgusting. That's right. Man Boy Love Association or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's disgusting in part because we were raised to think it's disgusting. It's true. That's the whole part about culture influencing how we think.
Mm-hmm.
And what I remember, that's why I made that separation because there's a huge distinction between making somebody miserable and torturing them and making them feel loved and cared about.
Yeah, as uncomfortable as that concept is.
It's
Yeah.
very awful and uncomfortable
Mhm.
because, and again, I'm going to say it's cultural. It is how I was, that's,
And that's why it's complicated.
that's why it's complicated. It just made me think back to things that I had to experience and going, well, but see, some of it was not okay because it was not okay in the culture, and some of it was not okay because it made me feel icky.
And
It's
yeah, anything I think that makes you feel icky, period, is not okay.
mm, that's another waffle statement, though. While I obviously, of course, agree with you,
Hmm.
it's also the case that, like Robert, for example, felt icky wearing socks. And while most of the time I didn't make him wear socks, there were some occasions where he had to wear socks.
Hmm.
And he would get very upset and it made him feel bad and he wasn't happy with me. But I'm not convinced that that was particularly abusive.
Right.
So, and the problem is once you start realizing that these things are relative, that's why when someone says to me, "Oh, your dad should have been executed," I don't know that that would have been better for all of us children.
Hmm.
At any, sure, maybe if he was executed before he was able to do any of it, I suppose that might have been more reasonable.
Or at the very least, removed from the home so he couldn't do any of it anymore.
Sure, had he been removed, but then not just removed from our home, he would have had to have been removed from polite society.
Everybody's home, right?
And yet, is that reasonable when somebody only does it within their home and they would never, ever, ever do it outside of their home to be taken away from all of society? Yes, but I'm just saying, I like to look at all these things and all these variations because I don't want to be stuck. I don't ever want to be one of those people who says, nope, just kill them all. I don't.
Hmm.
That's not enough for me. I don't even think all pedophiles are alike.
No, I agree.
I don't think a 20-year-old who sleeps with a 16-year-old, first of all, I don't think that would be a pedophile, but they should not be treated the same way as a 45-year-old sleeping with an 8-year-old. And there are many, many, many things in between those.
Yes.
I don't think that the 45-year-old who has some kind of relation with an 8-year-old is the same thing as somebody who fucks, kills, and eats a baby.
Yeah.
But I think they all should be removed from society. Well, no, not the 20-year-old. That was different. Anyway.
So this last point, the unfinished argument, it's
Yeah.
like essentially everything we've talked about comes to this.
It does.
That this is an argument that will never be finished.
You're probably right.
It's ongoing.
In each generation, every generation inherits a version of the argument and is obligated to continue it.
Uh-huh.
We didn't start the fire.
It's always burning.
The arc does not bend automatically. The arc, you mean of moral justice? Is that what they're getting
I
at?
guess so.
What bends it is the quality of the argument and the willingness to act on its conclusions.
And even the willingness to have the argument.
But see, sometimes it's also, yes, the education and intellect to have the argument as well as the willingness. Because that's, I think, a huge part of the problem here in this county. The brain drain, the people who are capable leave to go find opportunities, and the ones that are left breed and have their kids here. All right, if this gets out there and local people see it, I apologize, but you know the situation as well as I do, and it isn't everybody.
Yeah, there's a little bit of stagnation in this place to live in. So yeah.
So the last piece, the argument isn't over. Freedom and justice aren't finished ideas that philosophers figured out and politicians just need to apply. They are living arguments that every generation has to take up again. The list of who counts, who gets rights, and who gets protection, who gets included, has expanded slowly and painfully over centuries, and it's still expanding. Wouldn't it just be easier to say that all humans get to have rights? It would be simpler.
One would think so, but hasn't that sort of been the foundation of many documents throughout history? I mean, let's go back to the Magna Carta. I mean,
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Even way before because they were doing it in Athens. But see, we just ran into the problem. I brought up pedophiles a couple of times, and we both went, yeah. Well, that's what some people think about gay people, and I think they're wrong. And I have arguments and everything, and I think they're wrong, but they don't, and they think that's ich. Like I think pedophiles are ich. To me, it's that lack of consent and all this other stuff that goes into it. They
But-
think it's unnatural.
And so, fine, believe that it's unnatural, but accept that that is a human being who has a right to live their life. And I'm not talking about pedophiles.
I know you're not. And that's what I was going to say.
Uh-huh.
Well, then why not though?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
And the answer is that everybody. This is my value would be, and I think you probably would agree that they're born with that, but they could give it up through their poor behavior. Like you're born with the dignity, you're born with the rights, you're born with that. You're a human being and you deserve X, Y, Z.
But once you become a monster, things change.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is why, but then see, I still don't really believe in capital punishment because one huge reason is because there are too many innocent people.
Mhm.
And I think it's applied improperly and I think it's racist. And so I don't want to see a whole bunch of black people killed for maybe doing things that for sure white people are doing and not being killed for.
Mhm.
That seems wrong to me somehow.
Yeah.
Fancy that.
I definitely have mixed feelings about capital punishment as well.
I I don't think that Donald should be killed. I don't know that I think people should be hung in The Hague. I'm not convinced of that. Because I don't know. I didn't like it when they killed bin Laden. I get it. I understand that it might have protected us and it might not have. I don't know. I I get it. I don't think it was necessarily immoral,
Mhm.
but I don't like it.
I personally feel that the deprivation of liberty is the extent of the punishment that we should enact upon other people.
What if you have somebody who keeps escaping and killing? And it's rhetorical.
Mhm.
What if you have somebody who's on death row and they keep killing? W- I just think that there's more. Well, it's unfinished. I guess that's the best I can say. We're not done figuring this out. How much do people who don't give other people dignity deserve dignity? But who's going to decide which person is bad enough to not get that which everybody's supposed to get?
And that's why it's complicated.
Right? So nothing about that expansion was automatic. People fought for it, argued for it, and sometimes died for it. The argument belongs to everyone, and walking away from it is itself a choice with consequences. I don't like how that ended, but that's okay. Oh, I can quit out.
Mhm. I don't know if we solved anything
Oh, no.
today, but we just made people aware of why people are still fighting over this stuff.
And then it's complicated. It is not the case that the Democrats are right. It is not the case that the Republicans are right. It is not the case that the libertarians have the answer. It is not the case that the welfare state is correct. None of that's right.
Mhm.
I don't think, with as wonderful as our governmental system can be in some of its aspects, that it is up to the task of governing 300 million people and representing them and being fair to all of them.
I don't think there is any system of government that would be up to that task.
Mm,
And doing it fairly equitably. You know,
You're probably right.
that's why we have so many problems in the world.
Because if you and I if you and I were to be tasked with doing this ourselves after this discussion, no, we can't do that for everybody. Although
No.
ours would be better than most others.
Well, one would hope, but yeah, no, that's way above my pay grade.
Definitely. Third Continental Congress, though. I'm down for that. I'll go.
Sure.
All right.
Well,
Bye, everybody. We'll see you
bye.
for the next conversation.
Take care.